make a move in the ring. You can hit me with a word you fling.
How's it going, everybody? It's the post-fight podcast from the South China Morning Post, scmp.com/MMA. I'm Nick Atkin. As usual, I'm joined by John Hyon Ko and Chris Edwards-Bailey to recap UFC 251. Guys, it was a huge show. A lot of talking points, but we got to start with that main event, of course. Jorge Masvidal losing a big unanimous decision to Kamaru Usman in the welterweight title fight. Chris, we'll start with you. It was just utterly dominant, wasn't it, from Kamaru Usman?
Oh, absolutely dominant. I had it 4 rounds to 1 to Masvidal to Usman. Usman absolutely dominated Masvidal, apart from the first round I gave to Masvidal because I thought he looked a busier fighter. And everyone kind of knew this was going to happen. I mean, almost every preview, we all knew he was just going to wrestle, and use his ability to manipulate his body weight to control Masvidal. So, in that, no surprise. It's just a bit of a shame that, you know, there's always that and the R of he never got the full training camp, etc., etc.
John, you can't have any arguments, can he? But he did say no excuses. What do you see next for Masvidal? He seemed to hint, as Chris was saying, with a full camp, I might be able to beat Usman. But where do you go next for George?
It's definitely not the rematch. I don't see this rematch going any differently with the full camp. I completely believe that Masvidal was preparing the last couple of months for Usman, even if he didn't know he was going to fight him on 6 days or whatever. But if you give Usman a full camp for Masvidal, then it just evens out. I think that he beats him even more convincingly. All the people that picked Masvidal, they're just in love, or they're in this romantic relationship with the mystique of Masvidal, what he did to Ben Askren and Darren Till, and Usman went in there and shut it all down. Usman is a killer. He's a mauler, and when you put a killer or a mauler against a street fighter, you know, this is a sport at the end of the day, and you know what happens. Everybody was probably thinking like, okay, Usman might come out there and strike with Masvidal, but he was a lot smarter, and I could understand why you would think that, but he's a lot smarter. And after he won that title, he told you that one thing that separates him from everybody else in the welterweight division is his mind. And he showed that in this fight, that he could stick to the game plan. And even he got hit hard, in the first round. Masvidal was hitting him hard, but he took him and used his, dominant ground game and just mauled him for the rest of the rounds. And that's what you expect. And I expect the same if they do have a rematch. I feel like Masvidal, from here, he's going to definitely go to a money fight. It's not going to be a fight that you think that makes sense for him. It could be Covington. It could be Nate Diaz. It could also probably be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, you know what I mean? Because he was talking about fighting him or Diaz after he won the title, but it doesn't matter. Without the title, he's still the BMF. So the BMF calls the shot. So let's see what he does.
Let me bring the scorecards up on screen here quickly. Chris, George can't really have any disputes with this, can he?
Oh, no, not at all. He can't have any disputes with the scorecards at all. Yeah, I gave the first to Masvidal. It could have gone either way. But the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth were all very clearly Usman. I think there's no other way you could score it. And it's not to say it's a shame, but Dana White always says the main event's the most important because it leaves the taste in the mouth. It's what gives you the overall view on the card. But to tell you the truth, this is one of the best cards, I think, of the last 3 years. Easily one of the best cards of the last 3 years. And it was just a bit of a shame that we didn't have much action in the final matchup.
I think your mic is actually off, Chris. I don't know if you can turn it on. Yeah, we're just hearing your echo. Anyway, I'll go to John with this next question while Chris sorts his mic. John, yes, as Chris alluded to there, it was a huge card. It was one of the biggest of the last few years. And I can tell you from my standing, from my view, the numbers we've had on the traffic have been crazy today. There's just so much interest in Jorge Masvidal. But does this, dampen the mystique of George, a big loss like that? Is he still going to be a huge draw going forward? Is that McGregor fight still there?
Yeah, all those fights are still there for Masvidal. No matter what happened in this fight, he's still a big draw for the company, and he will draw in his next fight because he brings this mystique surrounding him. He's very similar to a lot of the top guys that maybe they're not the champion, but they draw like a Cowboy, guys like that, where they draw interest no matter what. Masvidal has a lot of options, and it's not like he went in there and his face was a bloody mess and he lost the decision like that. When you look at him, he got a couple cuts, but nothing too serious. I feel like if he wanted to fight in a month from now, he could probably fight from a month from now. He'll heal up, get back to training, and do his thing in a couple months. It's just, I don't know. I don't think his stock drops. I think his stock is great, but I just see I just wonder more of like what's going to happen with Usman, not really with Masvidal. Masvidal is like a entertainer. He's a money fight. I'm looking at the champion. I want to see who fights as the champion. What options does he have?
Chris, the last time we saw Usman against Colby Covington, we were all surprised to see him just stand and bang in the middle of the octagon, both of them for all of the 5 rounds. Were you expecting Usman to do what he did tonight? It was very smart, wasn't it? It wasn't the most entertaining way to win, but he won.
I mean, look, if you look at it from an entertainment view, it's not what we wanted. But if you're his coach, if you're his manager, if you're any of his friends or family, you tell him to fight this way against Masvidal. It makes the perfect sense. It's the perfect game plan. You can look at the scorecards and say, the judges thought it was a perfect game plan. So he's checked all the boxes and done what he has to do. And when you're the guy with the belt and everyone's looking after you, everyone's gunning you down, everyone's watching tape after tape after tape of you, your job is just to get that belt and keep it as long as you can. I mean, before the fight, Usman was saying his biggest idol in the sport is GSP because how he held on to the title and defense after defense. And I think that's what Usman wants to do. I think he's really about the legacy.
You make a good point right there, Chris, about Usman, that his idol is GSP, and you know this, that Usman never says that he's going to jump divisions and try to chase after other champions, and I commend him for that, man. Like, I feel like that's the great attitude to have, and I hope he does that. I hope he can continue winning as a champion and eclipse GSP. That's something that I would be very, very in tune with and very focused on with Usman, to see how many guys he could beat in a row in that dominant fashion and how he changes the game plan every single time. Because, in the Tyron Woodley fight, he had a certain game plan. Then he went into the Covington fight. He fought differently. He still won the fight, got the finish. And in this fight, same thing. He changes it back up and used his wrestling. So his next fight, we don't know what to expect from him, but it should be dominant. And I'm waiting for any opponent to come along to try to take his belt.
And he, of course, equaled GSP's record, I think, of 12 wins in the welterweight division. Yeah, the parallels are there, but he's not winning any popularity contests, is he? There was a chance maybe to win over the fans tonight, and he didn't do that. If anything, people are going to probably be even more sour on him, aren't they?
He maybe lost more fans than he gained. That can be said. I mean, my girlfriend was just playing a Candy Crush or some game on her phone. She was not interested in this last fight, but she'd enjoyed all the fights up until then, despite the fact I woke her up at 6 a.m. Hong Kong time. So she did well in that respect. But then it's the same thing. I mean, you look at someone like a GSP, he's a legend of the game. But when I go through the fight library, I tend to find myself watching your Anderson Silvas, your Crow Cops, your Jose Aldo, your Conor McGregors. Very few people are sitting there and enjoying the fine wine that is GSP. But what they did is they just won consistently. And he's not out there to make friends. This is not a sport for making friends. If you want to be a champion, it doesn't matter how you win. You just want to keep winning and keep winning and keep winning.
But look at Masvidal. He's on the cover of UFC 4, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he'd be making a lot more money than Usman. Surely, at some point, yes, you are the champ, but do you want to get paid that money that Masvidal's getting? He won't get it if he keeps fighting like this, will he?
Unless he gets that GSP-style legacy. I mean, you compare it to anything. You can compare it even to football. I mean, look, I grew up when Man United used to win the league every year, and they were the most liked team because they kept winning. But there were people they were probably also the most hated team because they kept on winning. Everyone who wasn't a Man United fan hated them. And I think it's the same thing with Usman or a GSP. It's like, or even Floyd Mayweather, to compare to combat sports. There's like that diehards who will get into the whole, you keep winning. I mean, it's a very similar, not a dissimilar style to Khabib. And look at the popularity Khabib's got behind himself with that 0 at the end of his record.
All right, regardless of popularity, he's got a lot of fights out there now, hasn't he, John? Who would you say he should fight next? Leon Edwards, maybe? Oh,
I would like to. Yeah, Gilbert Burns is there, and he's earned it just by fighting and beating Woodley. But then, if you look at Leon Edwards, he's the guy. He's the guy that needs the revenge match against Usman. Usman did beat him dominantly, but man, they're totally different fighters now. And I feel that Leon has elevated so much since that fight, and his confidence is at incredible levels also. So I want to see that fight on Fight Island probably by the end of the year. Burns, man, he's in a tough spot. I feel like the UFC is just going to make the fight that they can put together and everybody could be in one location. You know, that's what it was for this Usman versus Burns fight. So by then the UK should be open to flying people out, and let's get that fight going. You know, Edwards and Burns could be the backup and maybe face somebody else, maybe even face Covington. You know, I would like to see that fight.
Yeah. Well, what about the co-main event then? We better move on down the card a little bit. This one wasn't so clear-cut, was it? Alexander Volkanovski getting a split decision over Max Holloway to retain the featherweight title. But, Chris, a lot of people thought that Max got robbed. What was your take?
Well, I thought Max won. I'm not going to call it a robbery because it was so close. If I had to look through, I've only watched the fight once, obviously, but the first and 2 rounds to me were very clearly Holloway. And the last round was particularly Volkanovski, but I had the third just edged towards Holloway and the fourth edge to Volkanovski. Right, it's a very, very close fight, very competitive fight, super entertaining and high quality striking from both fighters. But yeah, I do feel sorry for Max Holloway. It's a shame that this wasn't the first fight, because if this was the first fight, you could repackage it as, oh, we need a rematch, we need to find out another 5 rounds. But while we've had the first fight where Max, based on tonight's performance, didn't show up, and quite possibly on tonight's performance, Volkanovski never showed up himself until the 4th round anyway. So it's a really, really tough place for the UFC to be in, because it's really hard, because I think these are by far the 2 best fighters in the division. I think everyone would have them number 1 and number 2 come tomorrow, but we do have to let the division move on in a way.
Let me bring these scorecards up here. John, yeah, how did you have it scored? I think I thought Holloway, you could have given him that 3rd round, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could have gave the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, either way. But the only clear-cut rounds, I believe, would be the 1st and 2nd for Max Holloway, because he knocked him down in both rounds, right? So it's like, that's something you cannot dispute. You know, the striking was so close. The fight was even closer than the first fight, and everybody was talking about the first fight was really close. So like Chris was saying, I don't think it was a robbery, but if the judges would have gave it to Max Holloway, I wouldn't be screaming from the rooftops angry about this fight. But yeah, if you look at the scorecards, it's weird. Like 3 of the judges were watching 3 different fights, it looks like, right? And man, you know, logically you would say, let's run it back because it was so close. But it's like, man, do we want to see a 3rd fight? I don't think so. I don't think the UFC wants to see a 3rd fight between these 2. And Max is going to have to go back to the drawing board, you know, like everybody likes to say, and take on one of these contenders, man. But it's going to be fun to see him fight somebody new, you know, without a belt, and to see that fire build back up. And, you know, maybe if he wins about 3 in a row, 2 in a row, I could see him fighting the champ. But you never know, man. Alex might be the champ. He might not be the champ at that time. Who knows? But Alex got a murderer's roll of challengers coming up. And I feel like the title, it's going to be so hard to get a hold of or keep a hold of for the next few years because there's so many killers, so many different styles, so many different, unique stylistic matchups coming up to where it's like, man, it's going to be hard to pick who's going to be the long reigning champion. Even if Max got the title, I feel like he probably wouldn't keep a hold of it for too long because you do got the Zombie, you got Zabit, you got even Ortega, man. Ortega, everybody forgets about him because his last fight was his only loss as a professional. And his only fight as a professional, and he just had a long layoff, but he's still a killer too, man. And you got Calvin Kattar and a bunch of other guys just coming up. Yair, man, it's crazy the lineup that you're gonna have to face, and Volk's gonna have, he's gonna have his hands full, and also Max too. Moving on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you mentioned those guys. What about this though? Look who's been tweeting. I'll just bring it up on screen. Triple C wants to become C4.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You overgrown midget. You stole that one. I'll make sure to stop you, you thief.
Why is he even talking? Why is he even? I thought he was retired. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see retired fighters talking trash to fighters that are active right now. What's the point? You know what I mean? Like, you're just looking desperate. Look at his profile picture. Like, you're retired. You don't even have those belts anymore. Get a regular picture, get a picture on the beach drinking Mai Tais. Cejudo is like, man, it's getting old now. Like, I used to like it. I used to like the cringe and him coming out and making those little videos because he had the belts at that time. So he's the king of the hill. So it's like, you can do that. And it's funny, but now it's just like, come on, man. Like, what he wants to come back. I think he wants to come back, but no one's going to give him the featherweight title shot. There's too many guys ahead of him. And I don't think the UFC wants him to fight for the featherweight title. And he's not that big of a draw. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. I think obviously he's a fantastic fighter, Cejudo, but it's such a stacked division. It's hard to squeeze him in. And he's not that huge draw. And the other problem we have in this division is we might actually have to have the trilogy fight because you look down the rankings list, everyone's matched up. Zabit is fighting Yair, Ortega is fighting Zombie. We've got Qatar versus I this weekend. Who's Josh Emmett got next?
Oh, he's injured. He's recovering from knee surgery, remember?
Okay, well, there we go. So there's Jeremy Stevens. Is that the rest of the top 10 rounded out? So I don't know where we really go for Max.
I'm going to tell you right now, I think that the Korean Zombie is going to fight for the title next. I don't think he's going to fight Brian Ortega. They haven't signed that fight yet. You saw that little back and forth exchange on social media. Brian was saying like, you need to sign the contract. We need to fight the Zombie. He doesn't want to fight unless he has like at least half his camp stateside at Fight Ready. That's his team. So until he could get over there, he's not going to fight. And I almost feel like he was waiting for this fight to happen to see what the result was. And even, he's got a little bit of backstory with Volkanovski. They had a little run in Vegas. Maybe they could put that fight together in a couple months, and that'll give enough time for Zombie to get a training camp. I could see Volk coming right back and fighting again. It doesn't seem like he got any injuries. He got a couple cuts on the face, but that's about it. I could see it happen like November, December, Fight Island, the Korean Zombie versus Volkanovski, and that's a very dangerous matchup for Volkanovski. You know what I mean? And also, it's going to be a much more entertaining fight, I believe, because the Zombie is going to sit there and not move around, and he's going to stand and bang, and that gives Volkanovski a chance to kind of load up and throw hard. I'm waiting for that. I want that one. That's the one I want, and I want to see the first Korean UFC champion in history. Why? Who else better? The Korean Zombie, right? Like, he's a legend already. Why not?
No doubt.
Well, Volkanovski was asked about who he wants to fight next, and he said, I've got a bunch of people lined up. I want to defend my belt. That's what real champions do. But then he said, if the UFC pays me, I'll do the Cejudo fight. So we'll see. Do you think he'd get more money for Cejudo than the Zombie fight, John?
Why would he get more money to fight Cejudo? Cejudo is a retired fighter that has never fought at featherweight and doesn't have much draw, and the UFC knows that because they didn't pay him what he wanted. So why would the UFC pay Volkanovski more to bring back Cejudo, who doesn't draw that much? I'm pretty sure the Zombie probably draws more than Cejudo, So
yep.
That makes no sense. But I can understand Volkanovski's point of like trying to make the money because he is the champion. He wants to get paid more, and I understand that. But man, I feel the more you get more money and you get to defend the belt against a logical challenger in the Zombie, and and make that fight come together. Cejudo, he's, who knows what Cejudo is really doing though? Is he really saying that he wants to fight Volkanovski, or because I've heard Cejudo sent like text messages to Volkanovski in the past saying like, "Hey man, watch out! I'm gonna talk trash to you online. Don't be surprised." Who does that? Like, how would you come on, man? How could you even build a fight around that?
Well, at least he's nice and he gives them fair warning before he talks trash.
yeah.
Anyway, why don't we go down the card again? Okay, because there was a third title fight. What a great card this was, man. And they all went to the 5th round at least, didn't they? So this one, Jose Aldo against Petr Yan. Yan is your new bantamweight champion after a 5th round TKO, was it? Yep. And absolutely, he lived up to his nickname, No Mercy, didn't he, Petr Yan?
Mm-hmm.
Jose Aldo just seemed to get tired after that 3rd round, like he's done before against Max Holloway. And in the end, it looked pretty easy, or Petr Yan made it look easy, didn't he, Chris? Why don't we start with you? What was your take on the fight?
Yeah, I think this was just the young line versus the old line. We've seen it over and over again, all the way from UFC 1, pretty much. Petr Yan, I think he looked absolutely fantastic. I think this is actually his best performance I've seen of him, especially against this caliber. And I thought he absolutely dominated him. I thought Jose looked good for the first 3 rounds. After that, he started to gas. To me, especially, because Jose Aldo is probably one of my favorite fighters ever. He's on my Mount Rushmore. And the damage he took in that last round, I think, was unnecessary. And I think his corner should have stood in, or ideally, the referee should have probably finished it about 60 to 80 seconds earlier.
Yeah, John, do you think it went on way too long?
In a title fight, I give the fighter the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Like, the corner's not going to throw in the towel. It's a title fight, and it's the referee's responsibility. So if the referee wants to let it go a little bit longer than normal, I feel like it's okay, because if you think about it, this is Aldo's last chance to win a title. Let's be real. Like, he's not going to go to featherweight and challenge for the title. It's going to take too long. Even in the bantamweight division, there's so many killers. There's great matchups, but I don't see him returning to the, fighting for the belt any time. So yeah, I don't care about it. I think, like, let him go, as long as possible. But I want to focus on Petr Yan, man. Petr Yan, Chris said it, man. He had a breakout performance in a title fight. That is very rare, you know what I mean? And he did it. He stood toe to toe with Jose Aldo. Not many guys are standing toe to toe to Jose Aldo, right? Even Max Holloway, he didn't do it from the beginning. You know what I mean? He moved around a lot in those fights. But Petr Yan just stood toe to toe and broke him down. He was getting hit a lot, but he was landing a lot too. And just Aldo, he just melted. He melted like he normally does. And Petr Yan's known for his gas tank, and he showed it. And they said that Petr Yan's the most dangerous in 5-round fights. We're going to find out when he has to defend the belt in all these 5-round fights and see what these guys can do, because bantamweight is also stacked crazy. There's some interesting matchups. You got Sterling, you got Cejudo. If he comes back, I could see that happening too. I could see the next fight either being Cejudo or Sterling. I don't know why. I just get that feeling that Cejudo is getting that itch, even though he's talking about Volkanovski. If he does go back to the UFC and talk to them, they're going to tell him, hey, we'll let you come back, but you're going to have to fight Petr Yan. And I wonder if that's, going to happen. But, I can see that happening. Petr Yan, man, he's a young star. He's only 27 years old. I don't even think he's hit his prime yet, and he's already this good. I want to see him in about 2 years. If he still has the belt, that's going to be incredible. He could go on an extremely long run against this division. And yeah, man, I'm excited to see what the future holds for Petr Yan.
Yeah, and it's a very quick rise, isn't it? I think just 2 years in the UFC, and his coach John Hudson was talking before this fight with an interview with our guy Matt Scott, saying yeah, from the day he turned up, the first day, I wrote down in my notes that this guy's going to be world champion one day. And then he was saying he showed Peter that while they were in Abu Dhabi this week. He showed him the notes saying, remember this. So pretty cool. But obviously the talent was there, evident from day one. It's Chris. He is something special, I think. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, he's an absolutely phenomenal talent. I was more actually familiar with his striking, but I thought today it really showed off his ability to control people on the ground. His ground and pound was reminiscent of a Mark Coleman. It was absolutely fantastic. He's a fantastic athlete. He might have gone through the UFC slightly faster because being Russian does help, having that strong country behind you that, as you can see, even just judging on this card, is absolutely full of talent. And I do have to think Aljamain Sterling is the obvious clear next contender. And then, I mean, you've got to think Cody might not be too far away. And I believe, is it February this year we'll get the return of TJ Dillashaw?
Let's find out. Yeah. We'll look it up.
Yeah. So that would be...
Yeah, I think it's January 2021. TJ Dillashaw will be back. And he's going to have to, he came out in an interview saying that the UFC told him when he comes back, they will give him an immediate title shot, which is crazy to think. You know what I mean? Like, you just got banned for 2 years and then you're going to return. Is he that big of a star in the UFC? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. But I think Petr Yan, he doesn't care. That's one thing about Petr Yan, too. He's not going to pick and choose his opponents. He's just going to fight whoever they bring and just try to kill them, right? So, and I like that attitude that he has. And he could become a huge star at the same time. Wait until he starts to learn English a little bit more. And, he's down with that trash talk. And he's like, he really believes it too. So it's not like he's going to make things up like a wrestler or something like that, like a WWF wrestler. He's going to be talking straight facts. And I want to see him and Cody go at it, him and Dillashaw, man. There's going to be some fun exchanges in the future for Petr Yan.
Yeah, you mentioned it there. I was going to ask, I guess we'll get Chris's take on it. It is important, isn't it, for the UFC to have champions that speak English, I think, when it comes to promoting them. And we saw it with Khabib. He just exploded in popularity, but it helped when he learned the English because he used to not give interviews in English. Do you think it's essential for Yan to learn English, Chris, if he wants to be that level of superstar?
Well, I mean, if you want to make the top level of superstar internationally, you definitely do. But then at the same time, I don't think he needs a word of English if he wants to be a superstar in Russian. I think in some way, judging by some of the Russians I know, if he said, screw this, I'm not even going to learn English, I'm just going to speak Russian, I think there's a lot of people in Russia who would be like, hell yeah, that's the kind of guy we want. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, yeah, it is all that. I mean, Khabib also, you do have to remember, was able to build himself up because being from Dagestan, he was also already fluent from being a young boy in both Turkish and the Turkic language that take up most of the stands. And also his Arabic is pretty proficient as well, which obviously tapped him into huge markets. But yeah, if you want to be an international superstar, best to learn English. But then, you don't totally need English. I mean, Ngannou has the ability to be a superstar without opening his mouth. I mean, he could be a bit like... Dolph Lundgren and a bit of an Ivan Drago type in Rocky IV and just be the silent killer Russian.
Yeah, another interesting thing from that interview Matt Scott did with Jan's coach, John said that, when he turned up that day, he didn't speak a word of English. And then he didn't, I didn't understand him. He didn't understand me because I've got a very thick Irish accent. So, but we didn't need to communicate. It was all just there on the pads, So it shouldn't really matter, should it? But anyway, we will kick on to finish out this main card. Let me bring this up again. Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade, another decision. This one split. It was going. It went to Rose. So she's got that back after Jessica slammed her on her head, and now looks like Rose is going to get a title shot against Zhang Weili. Is that the right move, John?
Definitely the right move. And what's interesting about this is they're both managed by the same person, which is kind of weird, in many ways. It's like they have the same manager, like I don't understand how that happened. But anyway, yeah, Rose versus Zhang Weili, probably on Fight Island is going to happen. in a couple of months or whatever, whenever Rose is ready, I guess. Zhang Weili's probably ready to go right now. She's a machine. But I don't feel like this was a split decision, though. I don't understand what the judges were thinking. I didn't even know that it was a split decision. I was just thinking it was a unanimous. The first 2 rounds, clearly, Rose won that fight. I don't those rounds. And the third round, you give it to Jessica. She came out. In desperation mode and just landed hard shots on Rose. If this would have went 5 rounds, it would have been an interesting fight. I wish that this would have been a main event for a fight night or something, man. It would have been a much better fight. It could have turned into one of those like fight of the year contenders. But yeah, Rose won the fight, man. She was crisp. She was focused. Her game plan was solid, and she did her thing. Now let's see Rose versus Zhang Weili, Fight Island. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, I have to agree with a bit of that criticism. I do think if this would have been under normal circumstances, this fight could have been on a fight night card where they would have been main eventing. And we could have seen this over 5 rounds. And definitely the way that last round was going, if the fight was going to keep on going, I thought Andrade had just had too much power in that final round. But then, with it only being a 3-round fight, she knew she had to throw everything into that last round. So it can be quite hard to judge. But then you do look at some of the other cards on Fight Island, particularly the midweek card, and you look at this Rose fight, and you look at even some of the cards on the prelims, like the Uzdemir, Yuri Prochazka fight. They really could have been put on the other cards of Fight Island to really buff them up. But yeah, I expected Rose to win. She got the right result, and it's definitely her versus Zhang next.
Yeah, what about Andrade, John? Is it back to the drawing board for her?
She's still one of the best in the world. She was close to, in a way, kind of finishing Rose in that third round. She clipped her really hard. And did you see her eye? Did you see Rose's eye? Man, it was jacked up. Her nose was probably broken too. Jessica Andrade, I would like her to go to flyweight. I want to see her challenge. I think she could rise through the ranks, like in flyweight, and challenge Valentina. I want to see that. I feel like Jessica probably would have more power at flyweight. She hasn't cut that extra 10 pounds. She could fight. Look what Cynthia Calvillo did. One fight and she's ranked number 2 in the division. You don't think Jessica Andrade can go in there and fight once and be ranked 1 in the division and fight Valentina? That's an interesting matchup. Both strikers. There's not going to be much wrestling going on. And Jessica Andrade has the most power I feel anybody has in the strawweight, in the flyweight divisions. It's like, who has more power, Chris? Do you see anybody having more power in their hands?
No, I've absolutely no one with more power, but I think at strawweight, if there's one person who Andrade hasn't fought at strawweight, when you look through her records, and she has fought almost everyone, I don't think she's fought Joanna yet. I'd like to see her fight Joanna before she thinks about moving up.
You mentioned
No, she did fight Joanna, I think.
Did she?
Look at this, though. Dana put a picture of.
Yeah, look at her. Look at her eye. Jesus.
That is mental.
That is ridiculous, right?
Crazy.
Barely see out of that.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway,
yeah. But
yeah, you're right. UFC 211. She fought Joanna. So yeah,
he lost the title fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe even a rematch with that is even interesting, though. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just feel like at strawweight we've got Andrade, Rose, Zhang, Joanna, who really make up that top echelon, and then we've got everyone else. And I'd just like to see them all get round each other and through each other.
All right, let's talk about the opener on the main card. All right, Amanda Ribas with a first round armbar submitting Paige VanZant, 2 minutes 21, but it was pretty much over long before that, wasn't it? This could be Paige VanZant's last fight, but John, do you feel there's a little bit of a passing of the torch maybe there to Amanda Ribas, of that, like the social media queen of the UFC? Because Amanda's got a lot of appeal, I think. Great fighter as well, a lot more upside than Paige had there.
Yeah, that's the key right there. She's a lot better fighter than Rose, not Rose. Paige VanZant. Paige VanZant, she fought like she was on the last fight of her contract, and she did not care if she won or lost, and she fought like that. And this is the result. You know what I mean? First round submission loss. She almost seemed like she did not belong in there with Ribas, you know, and Ribas just proved that. Ribas is a burgeoning prospect, soon to be contender in that division. They fought at 125, but she's a 115er, so she'll go back down there in her next fight. I would like to see her fight probably Tisha Torres. She's the only one that doesn't have a fight in who's ranked, and that would be a good matchup. Ribas doesn't seem like she got any injuries from that fight, so they could put that fight together pretty easily. Paige VanZant, she's probably going to be fighting for Bellator or one championship. I could see that happening too. Those are the two main options. Those are the companies that probably have the most money to offer her. And well, let's hope she signs the one championship, because we might get to see her fight over here against Angela Lee or somebody.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think's the best move for Paige? Biased as well. I would love to see her in one. I think there's some cool fights there, but
yeah, see her in one. I think she'll probably look at one. She'll look at Ryzen probably and Bellator. To tell the truth, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear any news about who she's signing with for 6 months, 9 months, maybe even a year. I think she might just take some time out, concentrate on the acting, concentrate on the modeling. She says she makes more money doing that anyway. Why are you going to have this lengthy contract negotiation? I would assume the more you model, the more you're on TV and movies, advertising, doing brand deals, I would assume that would actually give you more and more leverage going into a fight contract anyway. So if she can get herself more side work, it might be beneficial to her. Yeah.
And Ribas, I think, she got a very infectious personality this week. I think, John, do you see her becoming a star for the UFC?
Yes and no. I don't know if her thing that she does is infectious, but she seems like a nice person, in the interviews, and everybody seems to love her. So why not push her? Give her a little push and see what she can do. She's already ranked in the top 15 at strawweight, so that's already a plus for her. Give her a big fight. I mentioned Tisha Torres, but if they give her a bigger fight than that, I could see that happening too. She actually does have legit skills, so she's not just going to be out there, prancing around and losing fights. She's going to be out there competing. Going back to Paige VanZant, she could be on The Apprentice. That would be a major added, bonus to watching that show if she goes on there. And, maybe that's the rabbit out the hat for one championship. They had it so, so all along. I don't know. I'm just, throwing rocks in the river. But, yeah, Ribas, going back to her, she's going to be a girl that is going to be in that top 15 for a long time for the next couple of years. And there's a lot of good fights for her. I think she needs to get it better with her striking. But her ground game, she's like, it's just legit, you know what I mean? So if she could take everybody down like she did Paige VanZant, it's going to be hard to beat her.
All right, well, there were some amazing fights on the prelims too. I guess we have to talk about the main fight on the prelims. Yuri Prochazka, former Ryzen light heavyweight champion, living up to the hype, announcing himself with a brutal second round KO, a proper knockout of Volkan Ozdemir. Chris, that was scary, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely scary. And I didn't see it coming that he was going to put him out like that, actually. I thought he was going to knock him out, but I thought it was going to be more of a combination. But it was just absolute madness from Yuri. I'm happy that a lot of MMA fans who don't watch much outside the UFC got to see who he is, got to see his interview. I think he's a really infectious character. And I think he's won himself over a lot of fans this evening.
Yeah, I mean, John, we talked about it already, but yeah, Volkan, had Yuri in trouble, didn't he, at times in that first round? And it started, didn't it, with that leg kick that seemed to wobble Volkan, and then he was just completely, lights were shut out, weren't they?
Yeah, Volkan seemed like he was too patient. We talked about him and how he comes out in his fights. It's like there's two sides. There's the guy that comes in and gets that first round knockout, and there's the guy that's patient and kind of takes his time and is more technical. And that's what Ozdemir tried to do in this fight, which was probably the opposite. He should have went in there and kind of played off because it seemed like Yuri had a little bit of jitters, right? He was kind of moving around weird. And if you've seen him fight, like I've seen him fight live. I've seen him fight like more than 10 times, right? And he doesn't move like that normally. You know, some of that stuff looked like he was nervous, but once he shook that nerves off, that's when we saw Yuri, and that's when the knockout came in that second round. That guy is so powerful, so athletic, so dynamic, and he's a straight samurai, man. If I've interviewed him a few times, and he's one of those guys that reads those like samurai books. What is it? The Art of War and all that stuff. He's really deep into all that, and that's why he's an interesting character when you interview him, because he'll get into that stuff and explain him in that way with the accent and like the kind of like the broken English, which makes him even more interesting, you know, like the way he explains it. So yeah, I see him like getting like someone like I want to see him fight Corey Anderson. That's the guy. He's higher in the rankings. All these people on Twitter talking about, oh, I want to see Yuri fight Johnny Walker, and I'm like, Johnny Walker, he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Why would you put Johnny Walker against Yuri? I feel if they put that match together, it's fun, yeah, but I feel Yuri like destroys Johnny Walker. You know what I mean? That's two totally different levels. Like they've been through. Look at Yuri's resume. You know what I mean? Look how he fights.
Higher than Ozdemir, you don't want to give him someone lower down like a Shogun or a Ryan Spann to get.
No, why would you go backwards? You just beat the seventh guy. The guy is seventh in the rankings. You give him someone higher up who's coming off a loss. Who? Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson. He beat Johnny Walker. He derailed the hype train. Let's see if Corey Anderson can derail the Yuri hype train. I would like to see that fight. If he beats Corey Anderson, that he's not far off from a title shot right there, man. Like that would be a quick rise too for somebody which is coming from rise in. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens.
Would you say Glover Teixeira, the veteran, would be too quick?
That would be a good fight, but he's already matched up to fight Thiago Santos, and that's probably a title eliminator right there. But yeah, that would be a good matchup too. You know what I mean?
So that's what I was saying, like a Shogun. I think he needs to like fight. No offense to Ozdemir, despite he is 7th in the rankings, I think Yuri could actually pop and be a really big star if they give him someone like a Glover who's got a recognized name, or even an Anthony Smith.
Yeah, those guys would be good fights no matter what. Even a Shogun would be a fight. Shogun fights, I think, in this week. This coming week, he fights Nogueira, right? So yeah, who knows, man? Maybe if Shogun knocks out Nogueira, they'll sacrifice Shogun to the MMA gods for Yuri. I don't know. That makes sense. I think that would make more sense than putting him against Johnny Walker. You know what I mean? Shogun is a legend. He is a guy with a big name. If he goes in there and knocks him out, he could grow as a star. But I don't think that will happen with the Johnny Walker fight. You might as well put him against a guy that's much higher in the rankings. But yeah, where does Ozdemir go from here? It's hard to say, but he's still a top 15 guy. You know what I mean? Yuri just proves that he's a top 15 guy. Ozdemir is a top 15 guy. Well, who would you put him against? I say put him against Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker's ranked number 12.
No, I think you either give him someone he can like more easily beat, like a Shogun, a Ryan Spann, or I think you go for like someone who's got a bit of a name, like a Smith or Glover, and try and build a name around him. Put him on a European fight card somewhere, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, Volkan was in the middle of just rebuilding himself after the Cormier loss and the loss to Anthony Smith, wasn't he? And he was doing a pretty good job of it. John, we saw him in Korea. He beat Alexander Rakic. But yeah, this is just a real bump in the road. I mean, sorry, is it a bump in the road? Do you think he can rebuild himself again, or has he kind of hit the ceiling?
No, he could rebuild himself again. He's a guy that came in and rose through the ranks quickly also. I think he was in a title fight in his 4th fight within a year. So it's not like he had this long career and then had a title shot and then now he's still young in the game, especially in the UFC. So I could see him coming back, beating a bunch of good guys, getting up to that top 5, top 10 again, and then making a run. It's something that he's able to do. You know what I mean? He was just playing the game right there in that fight against Yuri, and he just got caught. You know what I mean? That's what happens. And Volkan's going to be back. Yuri's going to be around for a long time. They could actually fight again. Who knows what could happen within the next couple of years? But yeah, Ozdemir, he needs to fight somebody that's in the top 15, but not somebody ahead of him. He'll probably be ranked like 10 when the rankings come out next week or something like that. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, he's going to be around for a while. What do you think, Chris? You think he's done?
No, I don't think Ozdemir is anywhere near done. I think there's so many people that he can fight. I think I'd love to see him fight someone like Hyon. I'd love to see him fight a really good stand-up guy. I think it's just that light heavyweight division. It's always so hard because, you know, it's not like some of the lighter weights. If you get caught in these divisions, you do just go down. That's how it is. That's how you can get away sometimes with a worse record because you can just get caught and get knocked out. I love Ozdemir. I think he's an absolute talent. And I actually think he'll be in a better place 1 or 2 years away from now anyway. And we could see him fight Yuri 5 or 6 fights down the line anyway.
All right, move on to the rest of these prelims quickly. Have a quick look. Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu, beat Elizeu Zaleski by split decision. You had Makwan Amirkhani with a pretty good choke of Danny Henry.
Very classic.
Leonardo Santos with a unanimous decision against Roman Bogatov. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Marcin Tybura, unanimous decision against Maxim Grishin. Rolian Paiva, unanimous decision against Sagas Simagalo. Carol Rosa, unanimous decision. A lot of decisions here against Vanessa Mello. Davey Grant, that was a good one, wasn't it? Left hook, lights out on Martin Day. I think he got performance of the night bonus there. John, we'll start with you. Just pick one fight out from the prelims you want to shine the spotlight on.
Davey Grant. The reason why I choose him is because he did get the 3rd round knockout, but in the 1st round, he broke his jaw, which is crazy. You're the 1st round, you break your jaw, and you fight all the way to the 3rd and then get the knockout, man. That's one tough son of a gun right there. And much props to Davey Grant. If he got the bonus, did he get the bonus? Is that what you said?
Got a bonus, and so did Yuri.
Oh, he deserves that bonus, man, because he's going to be out for a while with that broken jaw. He earned that thing. He earned every penny of that bonus. Other than that, you know, we got some like nut shots raining through many of these fights, even in the Pava fight. I think he kicked Zalgas like 4 or 5 times in the cup. And then the real bad one was Leandro Santos versus Roman Bagatov. Yeah, Chris, tell me about this, man. This is just a disgrace.
Brazil, cashew, pistachio, all that was on my brain was nuts. And particularly that 3rd round. That must be the longest 3rd round in the history of the UFC. It must have gone on, 12, 13, 14 minutes of all the stoppages. It was absolutely outrageous. I feel really sorry for both fighters. I feel sorry for Leandro Santos because he got kicked in the balls all night. And I feel very sorry for Roman Bogatov because actually until maybe the 1st nut shot, but definitely the 2nd, regardless if he would have lost, I think these guys were on for a fight of the night bonus. It was actually a fantastic fight until then. A great pace, absolutely non-stop. And then it just kept happening. And I'm not going to put blame on anyone's name, and I'm not going to say Bogatov was doing it on purpose because I don't think he was. I think he was just actually fatigued, particularly the last 2. I think he was fatigued and was not getting his knee and kicks actually to the correct position he wanted.
This fight was an example of the best refereeing and the worst refereeing in the same fight, because earlier in the fight, Santos clipped Roman and went on this like barrage, right? And he was just beating the hell out of him. But Roman survived, man. And I was like, yes, the referees, you know, are letting these guys fight. But then he goes back in the 2nd and 3rd rounds and it just lets Roman just kick Santos in the nuts over and over again. And then the knee to the head when he had when he was a downed opponent too. That was pretty crazy. And I don't even think he took points off for the nut shots, right? I'm a big believer. If you kick somebody square in the nuts, you should take a point from them, because the first warning is in the locker room when the referee comes in and tells you the rules and like gives you his understanding of what he's going to be doing and what his job is in the cage. That's your warning. Once you go out there and you kick somebody in the nuts, square in the nuts, I feel like they should at least take a half a point away for nut shots. Not a full point, but half a point. If you get another nut shot, a full point. And then guys won't be kicking like that, because too many guys, they're reckless with the knees against the cage, and that's where a lot of the nut shots happen too. And those inside leg kicks, they're too reckless, man. And it could turn a fight, a great fight, like you said, Chris, into a fight that everybody's complaining about, because it was fight of the night, man. It was a crazy fight, and then it just turned into probably going to be the talking point for most shows.
It went from fight of the night to the farce of the night, because what I don't understand is, okay, I understand sometimes on nut shot you don't take the point away, but then on the second one, for the low blow, he did not take the points away, and then took 2 points away for the third. Well, I feel as if he should have took, maybe, okay, for the first one, you can give him the warning, we differ on this, John, we don't need to go into it, but that second one should have been a point, and to me, the third one should have been a point, rather than just going straight to 2 points, because it's so late that it's not really a deterrent to stop him from doing it again. But it's already ruined the fight, and he knew he couldn't really win from there.
All right, well, that about wraps it up for the card. You're going to buy UFC 4, Chris? You're going to pre-order it and get Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury? That's your bonus characters.
I'm not going to pre-order it, but maybe my girlfriend can.
Yeah, or you could just buy UFC 3 for 50 Hong Kong dollars on right now. I saw it there. I'm tempted to buy it. And Israel Adesanya is the other cover star. Is that controversial, John? Who would you have put on the cover? Masvidal and Israel?
I have no arguments about that. You want to go with the guys that are going to draw the most attention, and those guys are the biggest voices in the UFC right now. And you got the BMF and one of the biggest international stars in Israel Adesanya on the cover. You can't argue with that. It is what it is, like Max Holloway likes to say.
I think Ali Abdelaziz was arguing about it. He wanted Khabib on the front cover.
Can I have one issue with it? I wouldn't have actually minded for them to put Amanda Nunes on. I think it would have been nice, because if I remember correctly, it's been Brock, Connor have been on the covers of the UFC games, and it would have been nice to get a woman on there. If you're going to do two people, would have been nice to maybe have Izzy and Amanda, but that's just my personal choice.
Yeah, well, I'll check it out. I've never actually played any of them. Are they any good? I'm not sure.
Neither. I've never played any of them. I don't play video games, so I don't know.
The first one was John Jones and Gus. The second one was Ronda and Connor. And the third one was Connor again.
Oh, there you
Connor
go.
twice? Man.
Yeah.
He's a lucky guy.
Yeah, that happens when you're the biggest star in the organization, I guess.
Yeah. But I agree with you, Amanda. Amanda should have been there. Even Zhang Wei Li, if she was on there, I feel like that would have been kind of cool too. You know what I mean? Just have two women, Amanda and Zhang Wei Li on there. Valentina, just have the women, three women. Valentina, Zhang Wei Li. Just make it an international. Brazil, Kyrgyzstan, and China. Just right there. Boom. Three of them. And
3 continents. Why not?
that's why we don't work for the UFC, just because we have all the great ideas.
Yeah. We have the cool ideas, just not the ones that make up.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's about it for today. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen. Chris, I might see you later. Who knows? For a post-work pint. I'm probably going to have to write a bunch of stories though first. So you might find me crying in the Globe or another bar somewhere in Soho later. Anyway, thanks guys. As always, appreciate your analysis. Great stuff. And thanks everyone for watching. Go check out JHK MMA and Chris EB_MMA on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. You get me at Nico SCMP. Please follow SCMP MMA, YouTube, Facebook. Oh yeah, get the t-shirt. We should, shouldn't we? Anyway.
Yeah, when it starts.
yeah. Oh well, thanks again, guys, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you all again next time. Thanks.
Hey guys, Sasha Platnikoff here, letting you know to tune in to SCMP post-fight for all your weekly martial arts news.